came here in 1986 to run it for myself in October. I signed the papers and I was owner of the Red Barn Incorporated. People come in here for the experience, more so than I think anything else. And they love the fact that somebody's actually taking the time to listen. Find that balance between doing what you love that isn't really work, that might pay the bills, and more importantly, can resonate with people and actually to some extent help people. That's pretty rewarding. Without my customers, I would be doing what I don't love, guaranteed.
Right. Those are good.
Call this meeting to order. I guess we're going to begin with the public hearing, correct? Ordinance number 3, 2018. Providing for an amendment to the Winslow zoning map to rezone the entire lot owned by Richard and Joanne Bradstreet on tax map 1, lot 25A, the Augusta Road, from the industrial district to the mixed use district. And so this is a time for public hearing. Any member of public can get up and speak pertaining to this ordinance.
We got the latest.
Pardon? If there's no one wishing to speak, we'll close the public hearing and we'll open the regular council meeting. Begin with the roll call.
Ray Karen.
Yeah.
Ken Fletcher.
Here.
Jerry Kurian.
Yes.
Steve Russell.
Yes.
Ben Twitchell.
Here.
Jeffrey West.
Here.
Tricia West.
Here.
Michael Hebner.
Yes, here. I usually don't get asked.
Bill Lee.
I wasn't ready. One time.
Next we'll have the recycle.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll begin by asking everyone to please silence or turn off your cell phones. And then I'll entertain a motion for...
So moved.
Second. Seconded. Any discussion on the minutes?
Make
of
it
last
whatever
month?
you want now, because I already said yes.
And if there's no discussion, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Appointments. Reappoint Jerry Kurian to the KRDA for a 2-year term, and to reappoint Steve Russell to the Ag Commission for a 3-year term. Did we have any other interest on the council members to take one of those 2 places?
You kidding me? You own
I
that.
think we're safe.
You're doing a great job.
Do we have to have a formal vote on that?
Do you have to make a motion?
Do we need a motion? Probably need a motion, right? Would someone would vote that?
Good, Mr. Chairman, I move that we reappoint Mr. Kurian and Mr. Russell to those respective commissions and the KRDA.
Second. Moved in second. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Move on to communications, and we'll begin with public comment. If any citizen in Winslow would love to make a statement on any issue, they're welcome now to come up to the microphone. Yes.
My name is Kyle Price. I live at 147 Clinton Avenue, and I'm here tonight to represent myself as a resident and citizen of the town. I think a pretty well-informed citizen, and I just wanted to express some concern that I have for the way the information regarding tomorrow's vote and the impact on the local taxes has been presented by the town council and the town leadership. I don't think that it's being presented fairly or without bias. And the reason why I believe that is that from the very beginning of this process, which began in December of 2012 and until May of 2017, there was talk about the use of retiring debt. The committees that worked on this building project for the school were asked to postpone some of their planning so that we could come in line with that debt. And I have made this mention a number of times when there's been an opportunity to bring this up. But this has been discussed at 8 separate meetings, as is reported by the minutes of those meetings and also by the newspaper, which I've been through and looked at all the articles related to this. This was mentioned in December of 2012, January of 2013, January of 2015, February of 2016, May of 2016, September of 2016, April of 2017, and again at the end of the process that we went through leading up to the November referendum in May of 2017. And I think as a well-informed citizen, I understand where that money has gone. There were other needs in the town for that, including some of the annual school budget needs. I get that part, but I think to present this entirely on the citizens as a school bond resulting in an increase of 0.83 mils without any discussion or recognition of the other forces that have created that situation is not fair. And I just wanted to have an opportunity to express that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that, you know, the building committee voted to include the demolition cost of the junior high should that have to happen in the first bond. And I know that there was some sentiment that believed that that pushed that bond up over a $10 million limit that might have affected the town vote on that. It's my understanding, and I was there, that the town council asked the building committee to disregard that expense as they were moving forward with their planning subsequent to the failure of that bond in November, and to have that also noted in here that there's the possibility of a one-time 1 mil increase in property taxes as a result of that. Again, I don't think fairly tells the whole story. And that expense, if it was needed, could have been expensed out over the course of the bond. The other thing that happened through that process is that there were a number of suggestions that could that bond be worked in a way that came in line with other retiring debt coming up. You know, maybe longer term. I get that that's more interest, but it doesn't seem like there was a full discussion of that. So the final thing that I have to say is that the way this was presented on the town's website is that there's no mention of the proposed savings that will come about by consolidating to the two-building campus, which I think is also a significant component of addressing how this might be funded. So I appreciate the opportunity to express my concern as a citizen. I hope it's taken as where it's meant to be. I get it. I'm also an employee of the town. I know that you work very hard for the town, and I appreciate that. And as I said earlier, I think I understand where that money had to go that was a result of those two retiring bonds that were being considered through that process. But lack of sharing of that information, I think, presents that unfair and unbiased presentation to the town voters, and I hope that that doesn't affect their vote tomorrow. Thank you.
Any other members of the public wish to speak?
Earl Watts, I live at 11 Lucille Avenue. During the discussion that's going to be had on a new business resolution, I hope to hear discussion about what metrics were used to drive the decision to not go into the joint fire chief and to move away from that. Metrics seem to have been a topic that is driving decision-making by the council, and I'd like to know what metrics were used because it's probably going to increase my taxes. So I'd like to know how that came about. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? If not, we'll close that portion of the meeting. We'll move on to communications, reports of committees and commissions, and we begin with the town manager's
Yeah, I
report.
have, Mr. Chairman, I have just two things. First of all, as you saw in my report, our deductible for our sewer insurance is going up to $2,500 as opposed to $1,000, and that's because of our claim history. And hopefully when we begin focusing on maintenance, we'll get that reduced to $1,000. And the other thing is Saturday, June 23rd, from noon to 4 is Fort Halifax Days. So we invite everyone to come down to the park and join us. I think it's going to be a good event. And that's all I have for now.
Any questions to the town manager? You have your department reports, your finance committee, and your financial report. Yes, sir.
Yes, through the chair, to the town manager, to Paul, the public works director. Three things. When are we gonna get Clinton Avenue Hill finished?
Don't know. Waiting for Consolidated Communication to finish moving their cables. Our contractor's not gonna come back until we can pull the poles.
Do you know Can we find out when they plan to get, consolidated plans to get their work
They've
done?
been coming about 1 day a week for the last couple of weeks, but they don't seem to stay very long, so. They're not very productive, I guess. I'll try to get some information tomorrow.
Next is Halifax and Bay Street, the water district. When are they gonna come in and repave that?
Not sure, I was in communications with Mackenzie last week, and they were trying to come up with a schedule, so we're probably gonna have to shut that street down for a part of the day so they can get in there and pave it. I'll leave that up to them.
Then the third one, Frawley and Russo. We had some cones out there. And they buy a gate valve. Who's responsible to get that paved?
Not sure, it's probably ours. There's been a sinkhole there the last couple of years, and we've cambered lines and haven't been able to figure out where the dirt's going, but it's going somewhere. We keep filling it in and paving it, and eventually somebody's gonna complain they're gonna settle for the dirt, I don't know. We haven't found
Well, I
anything-
hope not.
We haven't found anything collapsed or broken, and so that one's probably ours.
And then, sorry, I made a mistake, I said 3, 4. Number 4, right over here. Benton Avenue, the southern end is getting rough. Do you have a plan for when to try to get that redone?
Probably not for a couple of years, they may have to do an overlay.
Hmm.
If we get approved to do the outer part of it, then next year. It'd be nice to get an MPI on this one as well. We wanna get so far ahead.
That's all I needed. Thank you.
Any further questions for anyone, or questions about any of the reports? If not, I'll entertain a motion to.
So moved.
Second.
Accept our reports as presented. Moved in second, any discussion? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passes unanimously. I guess it's, someone should take number 16 off the table, is that what you
Well,
desire, Mike?
in my report, or I should say attached to my report,
Is the-
was an proposed amendment to ordinance number 16, basically limiting it to no more than 2 principal structures on a parcel.
So someone would make a motion to take that off the
So
table?
move. To remove it from being tabled.
Yeah, okay,
For
so
discussion.
ordinance number 16, 2017 is now off the table. Provide for an amendment to chapter 14, article 6, 14-61F of the Winslow Town Code titled General Site Use Standards by adding the underlined language and deleting the strike-through language in the attached section. What is your pleasure?
So move.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. It is now open for discussion.
Based on what you're doing, sorry.
That's okay. This ordinance was on the table. Jerry made the motion to take it off the table. Doesn't need a second or a discussion. It's off the table.
Okay, so it's fine.
Off the table with Jerry's motion. Okay, and then
I did the
Jerry,
second.
who was the second? Was it Jeff? Jerry and Seth? Now it's on the table and open for discussion. Been moved and seconded to
For
discuss,
discussion.
for discussion.
And if the council is so inclined, if you're interested in amending it, is what I've attached to my report.
So you have proposed amendments, you're
Yes,
saying, in this
yes.
report, okay.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't realize
It's
that.
actually attached to this
Here
report.
it is, okay.
So,
If everybody's had a chance to read the proposed amendment, and then we could, I'll entertain a motion for the amendment to be added.
so move for the amendment to be added.
Second.
Any discussion on the proposed amendment? If not, does that have to be, voice vote, an amendment to an ordinance, I believe, right? Yes, so we have to take a voice vote, this is just on the amendment. We're moving a little fast.
Yeah, I'm
apologize.
sorry, I'm a little
That's
confused
fine.
on what you're doing, I
Okay.
don't know how to note it.
Okay, this is on the table, 16 is on the table, and Jerry made a motion to amend it.
Right,
And the amendment is, which one was it? Whereas, the second?
It's actually, you can just make reference to the
Okay.
amended ordinance number 16, 2017.
Strike through and then adding the underline, right?
Yes.
So this is added, okay.
Yep.
So that's the amendment, is to is to, add that amendment to ordinance number 16. It's not, we're not gonna vote on the ordinance, we're gonna vote on the amendment,
Okay, so we're voting
on the amendment, which is strike through and underline.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
The email that we got that was on here from Adam, so the amendment that you put in the packet does not reflect what he's,
It does.
it does?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
I think if you look at the second whereas, the underlined, that's all underlined, I believe that's the added wordage, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Any more discussion on the proposed amendment? If not, we'll have a roll call vote on the amendment. Yeah.
Okay. Ray Karen.
Yes.
Ken Fletcher.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Jerry.
Yes.
Ben.
Yes.
Patricia.
Yes.
Mr. Rose.
Yes. So now we have ordinance number 16, 2017 as amended, open for discussion. Does anybody wish to, yes, Ken?
Yes, if you could, Mr. Chairman, I just wanna make sure that, and I appreciate the feedback on that to those questions. If I understand this right, we would allow two principal structures, which could be two dwellings, in all zones except the industrial. And my concern, or my question, I guess, is what is really prompting this change, and do we understand what the implications may be down the road? Because we do have at least three of our residential districts which only allow one dwelling. So if this goes into effect, it seems like if you've got the frontage and the setback and all that, you could actually have two principal structures, which could include two dwellings on the same lot, if I understand that correctly.
That's correct. But, Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes,
may.
go ahead.
Look at it this way, the parcel would have to be such that it could accommodate two structures. So, the property owner, if we didn't pass this, would basically have to divide the property and then sell it and have a second structure built. A lot of folks come in wanting to build or have a second structure for an in-law, although we can't discriminate.
Right.
And so, anyway, we're getting a lot of requests for that, and there, if you look through town, and I think I provided a paper that showed there were a number of parcels where there were two structures. And so, this would allow somebody not having to go as far as subdividing, but could put a second residence or primary structure, principal structure on a parcel, but the parcel would have to be big enough to accommodate both structures. It'd have to meet all the dimensional requirements
And setbacks.
and setbacks and so forth.
So it's pretty much gonna be self-governing anyway.
Yeah, the size of the lot is
We'll
gonna,
go govern whether people can do it.
right.
Good, Mr. Chairman, you know, the one example, and I think I use the example of a 1.5 acre lot with 250 feet of road frontage in the medium density residential with municipal sewer and water. And the question was, can two dwellings be constructed on the one lot with a driveway that serves both dwellings? And I believe the answer from Adam, currently we can't, but with this change, we could. So, I guess one of the questions would be, and I think Adam answered it, what happens down the road when somebody wants to sell that property? And now there's two dwellings on it, but they can't sell both dwellings, they're gonna sell just one.
Yep, so, they would have an option, they could sell both dwellings, or they could just divide the property and sell one half or one section of it. That's why we're requiring that they meet all the dimensional requirements, so that they can stand together, or they could stand apart.
So, we are gonna run into a situation where we're gonna have to make a variance. Shouldn't have to make a variance because when they get the approval for the second structure, dwelling, they've gotta meet the standards as though it was 2 lots.
Correct.
Okay.
And they're also gonna have to record, I
Yeah.
probably should have included that with my report, but they're also gonna have to, depending on, well, in this case, it would be 2 principal structures, so they'll have to record a 20-foot right-of-way in the deed showing that it, you know,
Okay.
that it's going to service both structures. So it's set up in such a way that the property owner can either keep it together, or they can divide it and have 2 separate parcels.
And if they're divided, the driveway would be a right-of-way that would be common to both?
Correct. Yes. Yep.
Cause it wouldn't make sense to have 2 lots that meet the dimensional size, and then
Not have access.
depending on how you set up your garage in your house or whatever, then, you know, you wouldn't have, you couldn't separate them completely depending on road access and driveway. If you could do a separate driveway, if you separated the properties, do a separate driveway, but the configuration of any building would prohibit that in some cases because of trying to share a driveway
Well, like, for
at the
example,
beginning.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, my house, I don't own my driveway. It's a shared driveway, and I have a right-of-way.
Mhm.
So my neighbor owns it, but that's how I access my house.
And how about in the country, say you have a 4-acre lot and you put another dwelling on that lot, and you know you can separate them, but at that point in time, you're sharing probably sharing at that point a common sewer system that has to meet the requirements of a 2-dwelling facility, I would imagine, and the well, that would be maybe a shared well, or would they do a separate well?
I don't
and a
know,
separate
I'm
sewer?
not sure what that, Adam should probably, if you have to meet all the dimensional requirements, I don't know how you're gonna get to the point where you're sharing a septic system. But I don't know if Adam could,
I suppose an easement is possible, but I've never seen it before. No, I've never seen it separated before. You know what I mean?
So if you had another dwelling on a rural situation where there's no city water, city sewer, then you would expect that other dwelling, if it's a primary dwelling on that property, to have its separate septic and water, and well?
Typically, yes.
Typically, yes, okay.
Certainly if you wanted to sell it, I think.
Well, if you wanna, yeah, and if you're looking for, but the cost, you
Right,
know,
that's true.
and, you know what I mean?
Yep. Any further discussion? Gary?
One of the things that I've heard is that if I'm the buyer of one of these parcels 10 years down the road, I would want to make sure that I either have my own septic and well, or that it becomes shared use, that I have an easement that allows me to use that well and that septic system, and make arrangements between both parties so that they know who's responsible for what.
Any further discussions?
And, you know, if you could, Mr. Chairman, you know, I do appreciate the amendment, because one of the way I interpreted the original ordinance, if the lot was large enough, you could actually put 4 dwellings, which was really controlled by a common driveway criteria. But from what I understand now, that provision or that capability is not included in the amendment.
correct.
It would be no more than 2 principal structures.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
We all set? Anybody
Oh,
else?
right.
I'm sorry, wait a minute.
All I know is that if I was looking for a house in the country, you know what I mean, and if I had a separate septic and well, then yeah, that would be advantageous to me, purchasing that other primary dwelling or separating the 2. Cause a common driveway is one thing that's, you know, that you probably, the expense, so that's not a bad thing, but if I'm sharing sewer and water, then that's a whole different ballgame. I don't think I'd be interested in purchasing
Sure.
that type of a facility. And Adam says that, yeah, the intention is to be a separate septic and a separate well, 'cause people do strange things sometime in the sake of money, or, you know what I mean, or to try to save a little money when they're doing this type of thing and stuff, so, I'm not sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, if I'm not wrong on this, my understanding is if the septic system, I'm not talking well, just the septic system, is set for X number of bedrooms, so if you have it set for one dwelling, you put another dwelling out there, they're gonna have to put another septic system in. Now, you can't combine the two on one.
Yes. That's right, Adam, right?
It would have to be a new one or expanded, which most people would put a new one in.
Yeah.
Expanding it is
So I don't think you'd run into that.
Okay, I'm just asking the question.
But a shared well, you
Well,
could-
yes.
You could share a well.
You could, yeah.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll have a roll call vote. You're all ready.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Ray,
Sorry.
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Patricia,
No,
Ben,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes. Okay, now we move on to unfinished business. No,
No, we got
there's still more tables, right?
Yes, yes.
Yep.
Two more items.
I'm sorry, I didn't. So I'll entertain a motion to take order number 10 off the table.
So moved.
Okay, so order number 10 is now off the table, providing for authorization for the installation of a storm drain system in the area of Leland Street and Gale Street at a total cost not to exceed $750,000. And so what is your pleasure? You wanna open it up for discussion, we have to have it up.
second.
Moved and seconded, it is now open for discussion.
Steve,
We're gonna need this guy.
Steve, who moved, who did the movement? Who moved it?
Okay.
Ken.
Okay,
Can we keep that one tabled for another month?
You wanna keep it tabled for another
We
month?
haven't gone back out to bids on that project. That one's going back out to bids.
Okay, I guess we ought to do that.
I make a motion to
Wish I
I
table.
knew.
move that we table.
Could you tell us that beforehand next time?
Stevie, can I just,
Yes, go
is
ahead.
this the drainage system behind, Mr. LaFontain's house?
Yes,
It is, so
that's the one that came in $400,000 over.
400
budget, so
over the
we're-
estimated cost?
Yes, we're redesigning now, and we're gonna go back out to bids, but another couple weeks.
Yep,
So I hate to have you approve something we don't know where the cost is.
Okay,
yep. And I was just talking to Mr. LaFontaine this week about the project, so even if we put it out to bid, it doesn't look like it's gonna be 2018 type of,
It depends what the contractors are into right now. Right now, it's not the best of environments to be bidding. There's a lot of work out there. They're all busy. But we'll have to have that discussion with the council of what we do
yeah,
with it
yeah, yeah.
at that point.
We've already earmarked money for that, job,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, we just don't know
Up
what the
to.
final, we just don't know what the final cost is gonna be.
Are you, when you go out to bid, are you opening it up to more people to bid on it, to hope the price goes down, or?
We had it open to general bids last time, which is advertised in the construction summary and all the other publications. It says open as you can get.
Are you changing it up so that maybe the cost goes down?
Well, we're redesigning, so we're not gonna take the same path, and we're gonna be a lot shallower.
Okay.
So hopefully that'll definitely bring the cost down, and it may invite some other contractors that might have been scared by the 20-foot depth.
Okay.
Okay,
why you make a motion to table it?
okay, motion has been made to table it.
Second?
Second, moved in second, any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, order number 10 is tabled again. What about order number 11?
That one, we're good to go.
Okay.
Okay, I take it off,
And
table it.
I believe,
Okay,
Mike,
Jerry
I
has
think you
moved
can-
Second.
order number 11 off the table. Now, on, provide for authorization for the replacement of the excuse me, of the Cedar Brook storm drain system from the Halifax Heights subdivision to the Sepasticook River at a total cost not to exceed $575,000. What is your pleasure?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and second, it is now open for discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may, on that table that I handed out that Paul had prepared, that particular order is bids came in higher, about $61,000 higher. So, in order to do the project, we would need to amend that amount to $886,731.
Those numbers don't add up.
800?
The
Oh,
sec-
because of the 250,000 is coming from MDOT.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
We won't be spending that, but we hadn't kind of properly approved the whole amount on the first order, where we were.
Okay, so even though we have a DOT contribution,
The first 575 was not including the DOT contribution,
okay,
and if we're gonna spend that money before we get reimbursed, I think the auditors would rather we approve
the order should reflect that.
the complete project, and then
Plus
we'll
the
get reimbursed.
60,000 on top, that
Yes.
the overrun was, okay. So I need it,
Amendment that we, approve 250,000 of MDOT contribution for a total bid price of $886,730.50.
is there a second to Jerry's amendment?
Yes, I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So the proposed amendment is to have the total cost not to exceed $886,730, and to include the DOT contribution plus the $61,000 extra that the bid came in over. Everybody clear on the amendment? Any discussion? All in favor of the, oh, that's probably a roll call vote, is it? Orders? Is that a roll call?
Yes.
Just
Okay,
a
roll call.
discussion,
Pardon, I'm sorry.
that overrun, that's coming from the capital,
Yes.
capital, and is something else coming off it to put that on? That was all agreed to, the 61 is different than what it was before, right, so?
Yes, it might mean there's a project that we don't get done, is what it
Okay.
probably means.
Any other discussion on the proposed amendment? If not, we'll take a roll call vote on the amendment.
Ray,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Patricia,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Jerry.
Yes.
Yes. Now, the proposed order number 11, 2018, as amended, is open for discussion. Is there any further discussion that we need? Yes, Jerry?
Yep. Is there any way that we could cut out 61,000?
It's pretty hard, because the low bid on the Cedar Brook project was $175,000 below the next bid. So they
Okay.
left a lot of money on the table to begin with. And these are all unit prices, so I mean, it could come in lower at final cost. I mean, it's what it's how it's bid. I'm hoping we come in better, but I think our price is quite good considering what everybody else bid on it. I'm personally a little concerned on the price, but the contractor is gonna sign the contract, so it's up to him.
Oh, you think he's under, you think he's lowballing, just what the job is saying, or?
I'm just thinking that
You're
he.
just cautious.
I'm hoping he didn't omit something in his pricing, but, I mean, he signed the contract, he's bonded, there's really no risk to the town, but, you know, it's just,
Okay.
when you look at that much of a difference, you have to wonder, but
Yeah.
that contractor's known to do that, and he's still in business, so.
Okay, all right. Any further discussion? We all set? We'll have a roll call vote on order number 11 as amended.
Ray,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Patricia,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes. Now we will move on to unfinished business. We'll begin with ordinance number 3, 2018. Providing for an amendment to the Winslow zoning map to rezone the entire lot owned by Richard and Joanne Bradstreet on tax map 1, lot 25A, the Augusta Road, from the industrial district to the mixed use district. This is
So
a simple-
moved.
Second?
Moved and second. Any discussion? We all set?
Yep.
I'm gonna recuse myself from this vote, and we'll have roll call, please.
Ben,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Yes.
Ray, Patricia,
Yes.
Jerry.
Yes.
Now we move on to order number 15, 2018, providing for the discontinuance of a portion of Kenneth Esklin Drive, a public way, in the associated public easement There's more fully described in the attached legal description.
So
Moved
Second.
and seconded. Order number 15 is open for discussion. We all set? Okay, roll call vote.
Ken,
Yes.
Ray,
Oh, Ben?
I said Ken. Ben said yes, Ken said yes, Ray.
Yeah, yeah.
Who am I?
Huh?
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Jerry,
yes.
Yes.
Patricia,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
So that's my majority.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on now to new business, resolution 19, 2018, a resolution providing for the acceptance of forfeiture assets obtained by the Maine Attorney General's office, be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Winslow as follows. Whereas the state of Maine through the Superior Court criminal docket number CR 18-189 has acquired funds that were forfeited by the court, and whereas under 15 MRSA 58243, approval must be received from the municipal legislative body before any funds can be transferred back to that municipality, and whereas the town is expected to receive a sum of $806.60. Now therefore, be resolved, the Town Council of the Town of Winslow hereby approves the transfer of the defendant in rem of any portion thereof pursuant to 15 MRSA 580-24-3 and 580-26-6 to the treasurer of the Town of Winslow.
Second.
Moved in second, any discussion? If not, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. We will now move on to resolution number 20.
Can I interrupt you?
Sure.
Do we want to reopen that other,
I'm gonna,
you're gonna bring it up
after the next.
Okay, sorry.
Resolution 20, 2018, a resolution providing for authorization of the town manager to terminate the contract between the city of Waterville and town of Winslow for fire chief services and for the town to hire its own full-time fire chief. Be it resolved by Town Council of the Town of Winslow as follows, whereas the town's fire chief committee concluded that having a part-time fire chief is not in the best interest of the department, and whereas the fire chief committee reached a consensus to recommend to the town council to terminate the town's contract for fire chief services and to hire its own full-time fire chief. Now therefore be resolved by Town Council of the Town of Winslow that the town manager is hereby authorized to terminate the contract for fire chief services with the city of Waterville and hire a full-time fire chief.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, it's now open for discussion.
Good, Mr. Chairman.
go ahead.
I was on the committee, and I appreciate the good work, and I appreciate the input that we did receive from the folks within the fire department. I think that was very important. One of the advantages we've had is that we've actually had quite a bit of experience sharing a chief. And I think conceptually, theoretically, it makes sense, but some of the results that we've, not due to the chief's issue alone, obviously, but just due to the need for leadership that is there when you need leadership. I came to the conclusion that this is not the right time to be trying that again. Like I said, theoretically, regionalization should work. Not that it's directly related, but it is related. We tried sharing a superintendent for quite a few years, and they came to the conclusion that that didn't work. And as a result of that, Winslow taxpayers picked up, depending on which way you want to add it up, the added cost of at least $97,000 a year to have to form our own superintendent's office after, what was it, 9 years of experience. So I think that the other important issue is that we have a relatively small department of 6 full-time people, and we depend on volunteers to cover that. And from what I was hearing, and not just one conversation, but over the years we've heard quite a few, it's very important to have leadership there to make sure that the training and that the people are being supported. And as much as I hate to spend money, in this case, I think in the long run, this will be the best investment we make. We've had quite a bit of conversation about fire districts, regionalization, and whatever. And that goes back many years, but we could never seem to get to that point. So I think one of the conversations that we've had is that having our own chief with the goal in mind that because it takes 3 to 5 years to really put something together, that's gonna be one of the objectives, is to check out the feasibility. Is it really gonna be the right solution long-term to really do a fire district regionalization? And learning from what's worked in the past and what hasn't worked, I think we need the leadership there to do that piece of work, and that will be an understanding, whoever fills that position, as we discussed, Mike, that will be a critical piece of work besides providing leadership to our very competent fire department. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Ken. Let's go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I'm in favor of a full-time chief. I was not on the fire department committee, but when you look at the history of what we've done sometime is with a park and rec director that was part-time, and now we made that position a full-time position. If you look at the code enforcement officer, we tried that as a part-time position, and because of the ramifications and some of the issues that cost us a lot of money over the years, we said that needed to be a full-time position. If you look at the associated risk with a part-time fire chief, that's not there at all. You would think that risk would also, the consequences of not having somebody there with that leadership role, the consequences, could be life, or could be, life of a firefighter or something. And I think going to a full-time position just makes a lot of sense. We live in a different world where we have hazmat, EMS service for the elderly, so many things that are happening, first responding to events that we would never have thought possible 5 to 10 years ago. And I think a full-time chief for the regionalization effort and for everything else, just to be able to put that effort into it just makes so much more sense at this particular time. And so I'm totally in favor of going to a full-time chief.
Thank you. Yes.
Through the chair, Mr. Watts, does that answer your question on that? You brought that up under your earlier section, and this is what you wanted to ask about.
Right, I was looking for actual metrics, like how, what is the number of fire calls, something that's quantifiable. The points that have been made, absolutely, we do need leadership, regardless of how big the element is that you're actually maintaining. But I was just wondering what the actual, besides we want more leadership, we want more solid leadership, what other quantifiable metrics were identified?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If I may, Scoot, could you answer that?
Basically, the biggest number that I'd like to express to you is we had a fire chief 4 hours a day.
Yep.
We're in 24-hour operation. It's hard to foster a relationship with your leader in 4 hours when he's also attending meetings, conferences, dealing with code issues, sometimes doing inspections across the river that he couldn't do in his 4 hours over there. So we're like I said, we're a 24-hour agency. It's not just fighting fires anymore. As Ray alluded to, we have ballistic vests now. If you had told me that 20 years ago, I laughed in your face. Yeah. And so we're a lot more diverse, and 4 hours a day just doesn't cut it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other? Yes, go ahead.
Just to answer Earl's question, every month there's a fire department report. And at the end of the year in the town council report, there is a complete breakdown of number of calls, EMS calls, mutual aid calls, a whole group. So I think these are on the town website. So if you went on the town website, looked at reports, you could actually see each month's report. So it's pretty comprehensive.
If I could, I went back through some numbers. 2008, we did 683 calls in 2008. Last year, we did over 1,300, and we still have the same staffing level. So, and we have a full-time chief in 1991.
That was the last time.
Well, that's when we started with a full-time chief, and then we started sharing a chief 13 years ago, Mike?
Yeah, something, yeah.
13 or 14 years ago. So obviously back in 1991, we weren't doing 1,300 calls. So, and again, we just feel it's important that we have a full-time leader to keep the thumb on the pulse.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Oh.
appreciate it.
I can send this to you. I'll take a picture and send it to you, because it goes into their junior firefighter program, which they've been,
I was unaware that it was on,
yeah.
it's in reports.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
department
reports,
reports.
committees and commissions.
I'll just send it to you in Messenger.
Oh.
Just take a picture of it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? We all set? It's a resolution, is that a show of hands or is that a
Yep,
roll
show of
call?
hands.
Okay, if we're all ready to vote, we'll have a show of hands on resolution 20, 2018. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign, unanimous. Okay, now we move on to,
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
oh, that's right.
under new business.
One more
Um,
time.
So last month, you approved Order 13/2018, which was Hallowell Street Storm Drain Project. And when the bids actually came in, we were 36,000 over what we had approved. And so what I would ask if someone would make a motion to reconsider that order. And once it's on the table, amend it, according to this table, to 286,240.67.
I make a motion, we reconsider 13/2018.
Moved and seconded to consider 13/2018, so that is now on the table for discussion. Is there someone who would like to propose an amendment?
Make an amendment for $286,240.61.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been
Can you
moved
get
and-
that other 6 cents shaved off?
Yeah, 67 actually.
What's that?
67 cents.
Round up to 75. Okay, so that's the amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? That would be in order. Is that in order?
Roll call.
Roll call vote, please, on the amendment.
If,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
if you look at the 61 and then 36 for over $100,000, we've approved, this thing. So, I think we need to know what we're not going to do at some point in time. And, I'd like to see what we're not going to do to make up for the difference at some point in time, just so, to see what the ramifications of that are.
Yes.
Just to have that knowledge, that's all I want.
Okay, thank you, Randy.
We'll provide that.
Can you just put down everybody's, just start a whole new page and just go back and roll call on the amendment for 13/2019. And the amended amount would be this amount. So now we're gonna vote on the proposed amendment as a roll call vote.
Okay. Ken,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Patricia,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes. Now you put as amended, all that, we'll do the same thing. Is there any further discussion on 13/2018 as amended? If we're all set, we'll have a roll call vote on the amended 13/2018.
Patricia,
Yes.
Ben,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes. So 13/2018 has been amended to include the higher bid totals that we get in.
Thank you. We'll be signing contracts tomorrow, so.
Okay, good. That's passed as amended, yeah.
I have a follow-up question about the fire chief. What are the next steps for that? Are we gonna do a hiring committee for it?
Yep, we'll advertise and I'll put together probably end up with getting 2 counselors,
Have a committee, put
Committee,
together a
yep.
committee.
get a business person and,
That's a nice segue into now we're
Sorry,
open for
yeah.
discussion.
Oh,
That's
sorry,
good.
yeah.
We're in the discussion part of the meeting.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Back to the same, not the same question, but still with the fire department. Are we looking at doing a, temporary chief? If we don't have one by the 1st of July?
yes, if that happens, I'll have somebody come in and be temporary, acting,
Acting.
yep.
That's good for what, a couple of months at the most?
Hopefully it won't take us that long,
Never
you
know.
never know.
Any other items for discussion? The next item for discussion would be the 2 tax relief proposals that our tax assessor brought up that the state has available for towns to take advantage of. And this was just an FYI for you guys to discuss this, and if you wanted to have the town manager prepare a ordinance for us, or a resolution.
It'd be an ordinance.
It'd be an ordinance. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to read it. There are several towns that have done it: Hartswell, Yarmouth, Southport, and Scarborough, Winthrop, and Wells are the ones that are taking advantage of one of the 2 programs.
Good, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
That was very useful information, and I guess my question is, since there's a state, I call it a state program, there is a state, it's called the Maine Individual Income Tax, Property Tax Fairness Credit, which is in place now.
Right.
And the criteria is pretty well defined in that if your income is less than 300% of the federal poverty level, and you paid more than 6% of your income in property taxes, you could qualify for this credit. And reading it, and of course, it depends on how much you do pay for property taxes, but it could be up to $600 if you're over 65 years of age. Do we know if people in Winslow are taking advantage of that? Any way we would know?
I'd have to ask Judy.
Yeah, because just working the numbers, if that was taken advantage of, that could be a significant relief for somebody. And I wonder how many people are even aware of it. You know, I've heard of it, but until we brought this up, I didn't go online and pull out the details. But that could be a significant relief for people if they fall within this criteria.
Mr.
Go
Chairman,
ahead.
we do require, if somebody's applying for an abatement, that they apply for that.
Okay,
And that's all part of the abatement process,
right.
so.
But as we consider going forward, wouldn't we wanna make sure that, and why I say that, most of these programs that the towns use require that they have applied and are eligible for the tax credit, right? So it almost not absolutely, but in most of them, if not 2/3 of them, you have to qualify for that tax credit before you get the local rebate. So it almost seemed like that we'd wanna make sure that we're fully communicating and utilizing that, so that people get the state credit. And even if you don't pay income taxes, it's a refundable one. So you would, if I'm reading it correctly, even if you don't pay income taxes, you fill out the income tax form and you use this credit and you will get that money. So it's not just a deduction from your income tax, it's actually a rebate, if I'm reading it correctly.
And it looks like that's a requirement of some of these other communities,
Yes.
that they have applied and have been approved of that
Right.
first, right? And so probably you're thinking we would want to include that provision in anything we do.
Right,
Yes.
yes, and that the other thing, which is all part of what we'll have to consider, there is one town that drops it down to 60,
Mm-hmm.
but most of them are at least 65 and as high as 70.
Right. Well, in the one program, I think you have to be 70.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's program 2, that
For
you have to be
deferral.
70,
Right, yeah.
Hapswell, Yarmouth is 67,
Yeah.
South Portland is 70, Scarborough is 62, Winthrop is 70,
Yep.
and Wells is 70.
So, would you guys like the town manager to pursue fleshing some of these out to present to us as a
Yeah, and,
proposal?
plus the fact, one of, if I could, Mr. Chairman, I think one of the things that would be very helpful is to try to get some sense of who potentially would be eligible, meaning numbers, not people, names, but
Right.
how many people.
What the impact would be.
What the impact would be.
Financial.
Because obviously if, you know how I feel about property taxes. But if we're going to give somebody a break to help them stay in their home, somebody else is gonna have to pick up the number. And Judy does a great job each year of looking at the Betty and the homestead exemption. And I just looked at up for 2017. Those two programs removed $30 million of taxable property. And that turns out to be $480,000 of money. So
On one of, yeah.
so if we shift it, somebody's gotta pick up the difference.
Right. On one of the two programs, if I'm reading them correctly, eventually the lien is placed and the money accrues along with interest and penalties, and eventually you get that back, but it may be several years
Right.
before we
But
receive
in
that
the
return.
meantime,
In the
you have to,
meantime, yeah,
have to have the
exactly,
revenue.
exactly, yeah.
So, did you want me to
Do
prepare
you want him to pursue it further?
an ordinance?
Well,
Or just gather data?
yeah, I think that we've gotta get into the work a little bit.
Sure.
Because, you know, it's conceptually probably the right thing to do. But I'm concerned that as we implement this, do we understand the financial implications? Because we could do something with good intentions, but then all of a sudden, those last 2 or 3 people paying property taxes are going to have to pick up the difference.
Right.
Do we wanna form, heaven forbid, but
I
Don't say it,
volunteer you.
Ray.
I volunteer
do we
you.
wanna form like a subcommittee to investigate it with Judy, you, and just have a small group of people to look at it and see what the ramifications are? Or, I feel very confident that you could do it without a subcommittee, but if you wanted to, we could lend a, I'm just mentioning that, I don't know,
Maybe even have a workshop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we should
yeah,
be, we
with
should go
Judy and-
through, when Judy
Yeah.
collects the information.
More
Yeah, I think
detail.
that might be it.
Okay.
My other concern was when we decide to go one way or the other advertising it, how would we get word out? Would we have an event here for people to come to, an event at the library? I mean, cause we're not gonna be able to, we probably should post it online, but a lot of people won't see it. Should it be in the newspaper?
Direct
How can we
mailers?
get, what?
Direct mailers?
Yeah, how do we get people to know about
Well, the
it?
one will kick in as soon as someone who is over 70 has a lien placed on the property.
Mhm.
The one would automatically kick in
Mhm.
as a protection mechanism for those who are over 70 and lived in their home for, I think it was more than 10 years,
Yeah.
something like that. So one would automatically kick in.
Okay.
If that happened, but the other one, you're right. we would
I'm just
have
getting
to-
the word out there.
Because obviously, I think what Ken's point is, they aren't getting the word out on the existing programs.
That's my guess.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
Yep.
Now that I'm over 60, just post it at the pharmacy.
Mr. Chairman, if I
Yes.
may,
I
we do have,
nominate, Ray to be in that committee.
Now I know you hate me. I've always suspected it, now.
we do have the ability to have inserts into our tax bills when they go out.
Okay.
So even if we do nothing else but promote
But promote
that,
the
the
existing.
existing
Yeah,
program.
yeah.
Yep. Okay, if we discuss that, is there any other items for discussion? If not, we'll go into executive session.
Why don't we take a break?
Yeah.
So, everybody,